Thank you so much for joining Miracle Work, Chapter 15 today. It's like a news bulletin almost. It's like this is great news coming to you from out of time. This is your out of time journal, you could say. And it's incredible what we're going to be, say, exposed to today. Um, so we're still in the chapter 15, say, the purpose of time. But then we're also in, say, this section, the real relationships, the holy instant and the real relationships. And now, real relationships are real, so they don't need to be described, they don't really need to be defined, rather not. But what are we doing then? So we basically look at the things that are in the way, you could say, of the real relationship experience. Like ideas about yourself as, or your brother as a body. That's one thing that will come up today, like quite dramatically. But with a very good, say, good cause, it will help you indefinitely to realize what is actually real and to let the rest go. Really like this. Like the alternative that's being presented is overwhelmingly attractive, is overwhelmingly beautiful and lovely. And that's what we're going to discover more and more and more. If you let go of ideas that you actually see what you're doing with your mind. So that's what this is say used for. You'll see this during the reading and the going through the instructions of Jesus of Nazareth in this masterpiece that's called A Course in Miracles. So that is what we do today. And like I said, the purpose of why we specifically look at all the facets, because we have been going into every detail, and especially in chapter 15 related to our God consciousness, we go into every detail. And that is for a very specific reason. It's not that you don't know anything, it's not, So it's more like, in order, this you will see too, like in order for the communication, like the communication to be whole, there cannot be any exception made. So communication needs to be whole in order to be there. If it isn't whole, it is nowhere. There's no communication going on in limitation. So if you limit it in any way, it cannot be there in your consciousness. So it is there, but not in your consciousness. And this is where it all happens. Like there is your consciousness. This is the arena where this is all taking place. And when I say arena, I don't mean that it needs to be a battle. I just mean a central location and a location in consciousness. But before we start this, we have a lesson that we take a look at, and this time it is lesson 10, and that is going to be very helpful too. So here it says, lesson 10, my thoughts do not mean anything. The idea applies to all the thoughts of which you are aware or become aware in the practice periods. The reason the idea is applicable to all of them is that they are not your real thoughts. We have made this distinction before and will again. You have no basis for comparison as yet. When you do, you will have no doubt that what you once believed were your thoughts did not mean anything. Like that will come. This is the second time that we use this kind of idea. The form is only slightly different. This time the idea is introduced with my thoughts instead of these thoughts, and no link is made overtly with the things around you. The emphasis now is on the lack of reality of what you think you think. This aspect of the correction process began with the idea that the thoughts of which you are aware are meaningless, outside rather than within, and then stressed their past rather than their present status. Now we are emphasizing that the presence of these thoughts means that you are not thinking. This is merely another way of repeating our earlier statement that your mind is really a blank. Oh my God. To recognize this is to recognize nothingness when you think you see it. As such, it is the prerequisite for vision. So here we go. Close your eyes for these exercises and introduce them by repeating the idea for today quite slowly to yourself. Then add, this idea will help to release me from all that I now believe. This idea will help me to release me from all that I now believe. The exercises consist, as before, in searching your mind for all the thoughts which are available to you. Without selection or judgment, try to avoid classification of any kind. In fact, if you find it helpful to do so, you might imagine that you are watching an oddly assorted procession going on, which has little, if any, meaning to you, any personal meaning to you. As one crosses your mind, say, this thought about lollipops do not mean anything. That thought about yesterday does not mean anything. And so on. So today's idea can obviously serve for any thought that distresses you at any time. In addition, 5 practice periods are recommended, each involving no more than a minute or so of mind searching. It is not recommended that this time period be extended, and it should be reduced to half a minute or even less if you experience discomfort. Remember, however, to repeat the idea slowly before applying it specifically, and also add, this idea will help me to release me from all that I now believe. Okay, so you have 30 seconds to do this. My thoughts about, well, you go do a little mind searching. And then we'll come back. Okay. So this idea will help me to release me from all that I now believe. So I use this just as an, say, general basic lesson for undoing, for undoing. And we come back to that in the beginning of the year with starting with the lessons again, like 1st January, lesson 1, and on and on and on until 365, the last day of the year. So here we use this in say in chapter 15 too, because it is applicable. It's applicable. You need to get your ideas out of the way, in fact, because you're not thinking. Your mind is blank when you occupy your mind with, say, futilities that have no meaning. Your thoughts about things have no meaning. And even how great you think that thought is. So yeah, that's ego deflating, isn't it? But it's great. So this is all about that. This is all about coming to the place where those ideas, that the debris, as you could say, like the debris in your consciousness, is no longer, avoiding you from having clear Christ vision. So this debris needs to sink down and needs to settle. And that's why these exercises are very effective. So these thoughts do not mean anything. I don't need to be bothered by them. No, I want to be in communication continuously, right? It's like I want to be in God communication. I want to communicate. I want to feel that. But what is that actually? And how does that work? Well, this is really where chapter 15 comes in very handy, because it literally tells you what is going on in coming into direct communication, what we call the holy instant, and extending that moment of communication as long as we can, like not in time, but as deep or as whole. So this is what we're dealing with today, the second part of the section. So you see the lesson that the prayer lesson is already there too for today. That's the actual daily lesson for today. The lesson number 10 we just did for extra remembrance, like, oh yeah, my thoughts do not mean anything. Not these thoughts, but my thoughts do not mean anything. Okay. See, and where we're direct to is in communication that is literally out of this world. That has nothing to do with the limited ideas, but it's all-encompassing, complete, fulfilling, and whole and perfect, and as communication is meant to be, and not anything else. Okay, here you go as a human being. As the ego would limit your perception of your brothers to the body, so would the Holy Spirit release your vision and let you see the great rays shining from them, so unlimited that they reach God. Now that is a new idea, great rays, but we'll get to that. So as the ego would limit your perception of your brothers to the body, so would the Holy Spirit release your vision and let you see the great rays shining from them, from your brothers, so unlimited that they reach to God. Now, you might not have an idea what the great rays are, but you can definitely experience them from your brother too, radiating, the light radiating from your brother who is in communication. You can actually feel that, or join in it. So I'm not going to give too much description to it or definition, but we'll get to it in a moment too. In this shift in vision, which is quite a shift, of course, like suddenly there's a body and you see a body and suddenly that is not the way you see it anymore. So the shift in vision is then suddenly you recognize the shining light that your brother is. In this shift in vision, which is accomplished in the holy instant, it is this shift in vision which is accomplished in the holy instant. Yet it is needful for you to learn just what this shift entails, so you will become willing to make it permanent. Giving this willingness, it will not leave you, for it is permanent. Okay, so now one more, and then you'll see. For once you have accepted it as the only perception that you want, it is translated into knowledge by the part that God Himself plays in the atonement, for it is the only step in it He understands. Therefore, in this there will be no delay. When you are ready for it, God is ready now, but you are not. Our task, and here we come to the purpose of everything that we do in these classes. Our task is but to continue as fast as possible the necessary process of looking straight at all the interference and seeing it exactly as it is. For it is impossible to recognize as wholly without gratification what you think you want. For it is impossible to recognize as wholly without gratification what you think you want. Like, then you have a conflict. If you think that is what you want, yeah, then it would be it's a sacrifice of the first degree, so to speak. You cannot recognize. Okay, so I'm going to get out of this. Maybe read it once more. So for once you have accepted it as the only perception that you want. It is translated into knowledge by the part of God Himself plays in the atonement. For it is the only step in it He understands. Therefore, in this there will be no delay, when you are ready for it. God is ready now, but you are not. Our task is but to continue as fast as possible the necessary process of looking straight at all the interference, and seeing it exactly as it is. For it is impossible to recognize as wholly without gratification what you think you want. To express this in a different way, it is like your mind has always a focus. That what you want, you get, so to speak. It's literally like you get what you ask for. But what is it that you ask is the question. Now, what is it that you really ask for? Well, you get an answer to that question in every moment. You ask for peace, wholeheartedly you ask for peace, this is what you get. You ask for an experience of the communication with your Creator. If that is what you ask, you immediately are given it. It does not take time. You ask for something else, then the love of God. You get the result of that immediately too. So it's like it is always that. It's like there's no coincidence in that. You literally get what you want. You get reflected what you want. You get the experience that you choose. You literally choose that experience. And you see this as the what we'll read in chapter 21 is like the responsibility prayer. Like, it is me that is inviting this. I'm taking responsibility for what I see. And I recognize that I'm asking for it myself. And I will experience it, what I have asked for. I will experience that. There's no getting out of that. So this is a bit where we're heading now. It's like there's an experience of holiness available to us. And we say like, well, later. Yeah. No, it's great. I really would love to experience that one day. But not now. So that's in fact the continuing story of the human tragedy. So that means that you want something from this temporalness. You want something from this, it has to be a thing, like a form. It has to be something. You want that in your experience. Otherwise it would not be there. So, and you cannot look on perfect communication if there's something else that you want. This is what it said too. It's like, yeah, you get what you want. So if that is your pure desire is, say, the communication with your Creator, the direct communication, it would immediately be there. Apparently you want something else too. That's why your experience is something else too. Like you can almost see it as you use the power of God to have your own experience, because there's only one power. Now you're not using that for communication. You use it for something else. Yeah, so we come to that later too. Yeah, so that's a crucial part again, in this chapter. It is a crucial point in getting to see what you're actually doing, like in taking an honest look at it and not anything else. Like you want to know what's interfering, even though you're so accustomed to it or so programmed into it that you're not recognizing it immediately, which is perfectly all right. This is a way to get to it. That is not the accomplishment itself. It can happen any moment, but first you get take a really good look at what's in the way. Because it is like, why wouldn't you want your God communication to be continuous and, yeah, without exception, instead of catching glimpses of it now and then? So this is where this is heading to. So, and believe me, it is quite something to continue this process of letting go of all of this, staying in the communication, choosing for that communication, choosing to tabernacle with God, choosing to do that instead of something else. That is not a sacrifice. We'll see this later in the chapter 2. Like, it is really the end of sacrifice. If you stay in pure communication, is the end of sacrifice. And it only can happen by your desire for it. And also by you knowing exactly how this works, in the sense of, what am I asking for? Did that change? How am I seeing my brother? Do I see him as a body walking around on this timeline, three-dimensional plane, or am I, say, continuously looking for the great rays in him, the light that is shining so bright in him, in this communication? The body, it says here, the body is the symbol of the ego, as the ego is the symbol of separation. So then the body is the symbol of separation too. And both are nothing more than attempts to limit communication and thereby to make it impossible. Like to limit communication in any kind of way, to have a disturbance in the communication, makes the communication impossible. Communication must be unlimited in order to have any meaning. And deprived of meaning, it will not satisfy you completely. Yet it remains the only means by which you can establish real relationships. The body is the symbol of the ego, and the ego is the symbol of separation. Both are nothing more than attempts to limit communication, and thereby to make it impossible. See, and that is difficult for a human being. It's very difficult because it always wants to compromise. For communication must be unlimited in order to have meaning, and deprived of meaning it will not satisfy you completely. Yet it remains the only means by which you can establish real relationships. Real relationships have no limits, having been established by God. In the holy instant, where the great rays replace the body awareness, the recognition of relationships without limits is given you. But to see this, it is necessary to give up every use the ego has for the body, and to accept the fact that the ego has no purpose you would share with it. So, what are we talking about here? So what we are talking about here is a very lovely possibility for you. So incredibly lovely and say fulfilling, that if you knew what it was, you would not doubt of wanting it, and say being in fact focused on it, or having that as your first priority. So it's like you allow the communication to be whole with your brother in the recognition of your oneness in God. In fact, you could say, yeah, this is maybe easier to understand, or to get an idea, is then when you let go of this idea of you, like as being this three-dimensional entity walking around on a planet in a universe, if you let go of that idea and open yourself up for communication, like suddenly you are experiencing light. Suddenly literally like the miracle happens. You shift into a light communication. In that, you can easily recognize your brother as and invite him in fact, into the same experience. It's literally minds communicate. So it's like there's only one of us in that. So this lovely way of communicating together is in fact the offering here. To come to a light communication in which you share the joy of the communication with your Creator. That makes you indescribably happy because it feels so familiar. It is literally homecoming into yourself. And yeah, this is like you can read all about it, but in fact this is the practice. That means you have to get over ideas as if you're not worthy of it, you're not this, you're not that, all the descriptions you can have about yourself. All this is just in a way to let this communication be whole and see that you're a whole part of it too. Like, of course, look at who created you and look at who stands next to you. So this has everything to do with recognizing each other in the light of Christ, you could say. It's like that is the occurrence. And this great race is really like unlimited. You can, yeah, I experience it as an like a place without any kind of limitation. You could say it like an house without a roof. as if there's constantly a beautiful light, and which is true. It's like a beautiful light is directly shining at you, and you're one of these rays. Like it has nothing to do with any kind of bodily description anymore, but it certainly has everything in your experience of being an unlimited, formless light that is so fulfilling and lovely. Okay, so I did give a description now. So whatever you imagine, that's not it. So it's about your experience, and that is really easy. It's not difficult. It is just no exceptions in it. Like no exceptions, no acceptance of your brother as a body, no acceptance of yourself as a body. You're not that. So the communication that we're talking about here needs to be whole, to be real, needs to be whole, to be experienced. In your consciousness, it needs to be whole. No ifs and buts, no exceptions, none of that. So to see this, here it says, to see these great rays replace the body in awareness. To see this, it is necessary to give up every idea, every use the ego has for the body, and to accept the fact that the ego has no purpose you would share with it. Limit your vision of a brother to his body, which you will do as long as you would not release him from it, and you have denied his gift to you. His body cannot give it, and seek it not through yours. But your minds are already continuous, remember? Your minds are already continuous, and their union need only be accepted. Like it is already taking place, so you just have to accept it. Minds communicate, bodies don't. And the loneliness in heaven is gone. If you would but let the Holy Spirit tell you of the love of God for you and the need that your creations have to be with you forever, you would experience the attraction of the eternal. For no one can hear him speak of this and long remain willing to linger here. Long remain willing to linger here. If you start to experience the attraction of the eternal would be the use of staying here where you find yourself now, in this three-dimensional definition of yourself, or believe in any kind of... See, this is also what it is, like a belief in any kind of limitation. That is always a self-imposed limitation, because in reality there is no limitation. So as long as you see yourself as limited in any kind of way, this is where it comes down to. If you see yourself as limited in any way, this communication cannot take place. So that's why we train. That's why we say, like, my thoughts do not mean anything. My thoughts are occupied with a place that doesn't exist, in a time that doesn't exist anymore. It's over. So that's already gone. That's why we say this, like, I'm gone. I'm not that any longer. My definition of myself is not working any longer. I left my definition of myself. And so do you. Like, this is the time to let go of your definition of yourself. Any belief in limitation, seriously, like any belief in limitation would make this communication impossible. And if you, for one moment, experience the attraction of the eternal, you cannot stop yourself from going there. Oh my God. Oh, this is beautiful. So great. So your minds are already continuous, is what it here says. Like, they communicate perfectly, but their union needs only be accepted, and the loneliness in heaven is gone. If you would but let the Holy Spirit tell you of the love of God for you, and why wouldn't you? Let the Holy Spirit tell you of the love of God. Holy Spirit, show me, what is the love of God? What is that? I don't know. Show me. And the need that your creations have to be with you, you would experience the attraction of the eternal. For no one can hear him speak of this loveliness and long remain willing to linger in a place of limitation. For it is your will to be in heaven, where you are complete and quiet, in such sure and loving relationships that any limits are impossible. Would you not exchange your little relationships for this? Oh yeah. Would you not exchange your little relationships for this? For the body is little and limited, and only those whom you would see without the limits that the ego would impose on them can offer you the gift of freedom. Let's say this once more. For the body is little and limited, and only those whom you would see without the limits that the ego would impose on them can offer you the gift of freedom. You have no conception of the limits you have placed on your perception, and no idea of all the loveliness that you could see. But this you must remember. The attraction of guilt opposes the attraction of God. His attraction for you remains unlimited, but because your power, being his, the power of God, is as great as his, you can turn away from love. What you invest in guilt, you withdraw from God. This was what I said in the beginning too. It's like God's power does not oppose, but you in your dream can turn away from love, is what you think, and you get the result of it, because you feel guilt. So what you invest in guilt, you withdraw from God. you choose for littleness, for turning away from love, for seeing yourself as limited in any kind of way, which is very interesting. It's like that is your investment in guilt, thinking that you're limited in any way. Sorry. Thinking that you're limited in any kind of way is your investment in guilt. Your sight grows weak and dim and limited, for you have attempted to separate the Father from the Son and limit their communication. Look at that. Wow. When the body ceases to attract you, and when you place no value on it as a means of getting anything, then there will be no interference in communication, and your thoughts will be as free as God's, as you let the Holy Spirit teach you how to use the body only for purposes of communication, and renounce its use for separation and attack, which the ego sees in it. You will learn you have no need of a body at all. Okay, so now this was interesting. See, it's very compact. It's great that it's so, say, all put in one section of a chapter. When the body ceases to attract you, and when you place no value on it as a means of getting anything, then there will be no interference in communication, and your thoughts will be as free as God's. See, will be as free as God's is like, apparently, when you are busy, say, occupying your mind with ideas of getting something, using the body as a means, your thoughts aren't free, like you're preoccupied. You are literally occupying your mind with interference. So as you let the Holy Spirit teach you how to use the body only for purposes of communication, what is that? I don't know what that is. Show me what that is. Holy Spirit, show me what it is to use the body only for purposes of communication. What does that mean? And renounce its use for separation and attack, which the ego sees in it. You will learn you have no need of a body at all. In the holy instant, there are no bodies, and you experience only the attraction of God. Accepting it as undivided, you will join Him wholly in an instant, for you would place no limits on your union with Him. The reality of this relationship becomes the only truth that you could ever want. All truth is here. See, this experiencing, in the holy instant there are no bodies, and you experience only the attraction of God. See, this is where it comes down to. It's an attraction of God. Accepting it as undivided, you join Him wholly in an instant, for you would place no limits on your union with Him. You let this be whole. So this is interesting, because this is a part that you recognize in your experience with God. It's like, for instance, when we listen to the music before the session starts, we listen to music. We're actually relaxing into it. We're opening up for the communication of God. Now, what is it that you're going to do? Are you suddenly thinking that you're doing something, that you're in an online class listening to someone? Or are you thinking that you need to behave a little, or it will come later, or who knows? There's something that happens for you not to disappear in light completely. So you have a certain idea of what is going on, or even during this session. It's like if you listen to me as somebody telling you something, as a body telling you something, then you're actually missing it, what is going on. Like, no, there's every instant is an invitation for a holy instant. If you limit it with your ideas in any way, the communication does not take place. So that's in your exercise of coming to God communication, essential to know that that is what you're doing. Like you're limiting, you're interfering, in fact, with the communication that can be fully in your awareness by allowing this miracle to occur to you and see your body disappear into light. Like, what is wrong with that? No, nothing. Are you afraid of it? It won't happen. If you're afraid of it, it's not going to happen. If you have ideas that you want to do something else, it's not going to happen. If your ideas about your brother are limited in any kind of way, it will not happen. So this is how subtle this is. Like it needs to be pure, to be whole. It like your investment in anything you have to give up in order to experience completion and the complete attraction to God. And you know that this is happening when we relax or when we actually focus on it, when we let ourselves go a little bit, like not a little bit, but in fact completely. It's like, are you allowing yourself to completely dissolve into that? That's really where it comes down to. Are you allowing God to take over? Are you recognizing that you're no longer have any kind of appetite to limit this experience of yourself in any kind of way, because that is really what you're doing? Are you done being attracted to guilt? It's the same question. So all of this is the same stuff. And we will see this too in chapter 28. It's like the the obstacles to peace. Like there's different phases in that. It's like, what is stopping me from having a full-blown peace experience? Well, there are some things. And if you're not experiencing peace, you're probably applying one of those. You might be afraid of God. You might be afraid of losing the body. You might be thinking that your body has a value. You know, all of this comes back in chapter 28. You're not a body, you're free. You know this as an attractive idea in lesson, what is it, lesson 200? It's like, that might become a very attractive idea. I'm not a body, I'm free. Okay, so then in your daily activities, in your valuing everything that's going on, that needs to be integrated too in your experience. Why would I limit myself in any way? Why would I still do that in order to avoid full communication with what is, with God? So this is the process that we're looking at and that we're in the middle of, you could say. So in the holy instant, there are no bodies, and you experience only the attraction of God. See, that is a really beautiful, like I said, a subtle thing within yourself, and on this level of subtlety, you are floating, you could say, in your relaxation, to feel the subtle changes when you start to come into a quiet space inside yourself. You feel subtle changes. You also feel something that starts to come to you as an attraction, like as a real beautiful presentation, like you could call it a light that is dawning in your mind. Now, what are you doing with that in your mind? Are you breathing that in and diving deeply into it, or are you staying on the surface of that and leaving that just floating a little bit? Just, okay, it is still there. Oh, that's enough. It's still there. Or are you willing to let that take you over in a full-blown holy instant in which you're so happy to be so attracted to God that you don't know what to do with yourself? That's also a possibility. That's also a possibility. So, but this is the process that is going on in you when you meditate. Otherwise, why would you meditate? And are you meditating to sit still and be quiet? Or are you meditating to allow this subtle change to occur and let this attraction to God take you over? And are you disappearing into light? Are you seeing that as, okay, this is the time, this is the place? Why would I want to hold on to to anything? Excuse me. Why would I want to hold on to anything here? Look at it. Look at it. So this is meditation time. If you still think it has to do with poses, the way that you sit down and cross your legs, and how long you sit down in order to have a better experience of God, forget it. It's never going to happen. It's not going to happen that way. It's nonsense. Are you willing in this tiny little instant to feel, to let this attraction to God open up completely, to allow the love of God to literally flush you into a whole different experience of yourself that is so enormous that you have no time to say goodbye or to say thank you. Even that is gone then. It takes you over. Now this is the choices that you have during your, say, meditation. So you could say like this activation that is taking place in our minds, like this holy instant activation in our minds, is in fact really making you alert of what it is that's going on in your mind when you become still and make the decision to let go and literally surrendering into that, to surrendering into your attraction to God, letting yourself be completely tempted by it and taken over by it. Well, that's about as clear as I could express it. So I love it. So thank you. Thank you for listening to this. This is a great, in fact, great opportunity. Wonderful part of the chapter. And it has everything to do with what we're just saying. Judgment and love are opposites. From one come all the sorrows of the world, but from the other comes the peace of God Himself. Forgiveness looks on sinlessness alone and judges not. Forgiveness looks on sinlessness alone and judges not. Through this I come to you, God, Father. Judgment will bind my eyes and make me blind. In other words, I'm just looking for proof that my judgment is right. Judgment will bind my eyes and make me blind. Yet love, reflected in forgiveness here, reminds me you have given me a way to find your peace again. I am redeemed when I elect to follow in this way. You have not left me comfortless. I have within me both the memory of you and one who leads me to it. Father, I would hear your voice and find your peace today. For I would love my own identity and find in him the memory of you. Wow, that's divine poetry. Incredible. Once more. Forgiveness looks on sinlessness alone and judges not. Through this I come to you. Judgment will bind my eyes and make me blind. Yet love reflected in forgiveness here reminds me you have given me a way to find your peace again. I am redeemed when I elect to follow in this way. You have not left me comfortless. I have within me both the memory of you and one who leads me to it. Father, I would hear your voice and find your peace today, for I would love my own identity and find in him the memory of you. So thank you so much for joining today. It's so lovely to be able to go through these chapters in this way, because they reveal just that what it is that you want. In fact, it's like it gives you exactly what you want and ways to get to that. Wow, that's a great deal. That's incredible. So thank you for joining in that today, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you so much.